big surprise in the sense that we did see a fall in employment. The market and our forecasters here at ANZ were expecting a pretty solid rise, but that did come out of a fall in the participation rate. We have seen an absolute spike in the number of people who were either looking for work or in work in the last year. This has come back a little bit. It's still high relative to the long run average, but has come down from 67.3 to 66.8. Even a 0.1 percentage point change here is pretty big in terms of the number of jobs in the economy. We don't have the data on this, but I suspect there's a few less health workers through this month than there has been in the past, because that was one of the big industries where we saw that lift in participation flowing through to the workforce. Still, an unemployment rate of 4.1% says that the labour market is tight, the economy is still looking healthy from a labour market perspective, and it's not going to encourage any Reserve Bank moves in the short term.
Yeah, Adelaide, a lot of economists dubbed the January report as a hot jobs report, and ABS has given the reason that because there is a bit of a seasonal factor in play there. And so in February, do we see that seasonal factor again?
So we are seeing maybe a little bit of a change. So in this data, it is seasonally adjusted, which means they take out things that happen every year consistently so that we can understand the numbers being the same thing no matter what month they're in. Otherwise, you'd see, huge increases in November each year, big decreases in January. That generally gets taken out of the data. But when things happen only for a few years in a row, it doesn't always get taken out. It sounds like more people retiring at around this time is becoming a new thing that is not captured seasonally. But hopefully by next year or the year after, that will be stripped out of the data. The important thing, though, is that with a low unemployment rate and a very low underemployment rate, we are not seeing a great number of people looking for work and not being able to find it, or in work but not with enough hours.
Yeah, the unemployment rate remains steady at 4.1%. It's still very low by historical standards, and it suggesting the labour market remains very tight, as you alluded to. Now, it's one of the key factors that the central banks considers when making decisions on interest rates. Now, inflation has eased, but the labour market is still very tight. Does that mean that we won't get a rate cut next month when the board meets again?
With the mix of domestic data right now, it's very unlikely that we'll see a rate cut in the next meeting, which is in April. May is still a live meeting with a possibility of a rate cut, but on the balance of data right now, we don't think there'll be a rate cut in May either. The ANZ research forecast for the Reserve Bank cycle is that the next cut will occur in August and that will be the last cut. Now, the big risk to that forecast is around global uncertainty. The Australian economy itself does not have a great amount of risk in it right now. There's not something that we're on the edge of where you need extra rate cuts. The labour market's tight, wage growth is going in the right direction, consumer spending is going in the right direction, mortgage arrears are very low, and households are looking healthy in aggregate. Of course, the cumulative impact of inflation in the last few years have left some people struggling, and I don't want to diminish that. But for the people with debt, where the Reserve Bank has the biggest impact, most of those people have been very resilient, and most of those household budgets have been very resilient. All of this points to no moves. If there's escalating trade tension, if global growth from tariffs or global conflict create a downward growth trajectory in Australia, that's where an extra rate cut might come in. But April is probably too soon for any of those effects to flow through and for the Reserve Bank to make a decision on that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the global trade tensions impacting economy. What can we expect for the unemployment rate for the remainder of the year, and how would that impact people who are working or looking for work?
We expect the quarterly average of the unemployment rate to peak at 4.2% this year. So that means that generally through the year, we expect the unemployment rate to remain in its current tight range. Over the last 13 months, the unemployment rate has been exactly within 3.9 to 4.2% every month for the last 13 months. So looking forward, it's going to be a very similar story, which means that most people with jobs will keep their jobs. Most people looking for jobs have a good chance of getting it, but of course there will still be that 4-ish% of the workforce that is looking. Of course, this doesn't mean that everyone without a job now won't have a job all year. There's always people who quit their jobs, find new things, and frictional unemployment is always a part of that number. It was very, very rare that you would ever see, 0 or 1% unemployment. And historically, we're in a really, really good place versus the long run average.